Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Pregame Network podcast. This is episode 76 of the only gaming news show on the internet not afraid to offend the fuck out of anybody, which I'm sure we'll do at some point today.
Oh, I'm sure.
So this is Dan, and joined by my bestest pal Anthony, and we're just going to be talking about some of the stuff in gaming that's happened this past week within our immediate sphere, realm, world, whatever. As always, we'll get started with what we've been playing and then jump right into what we want to talk about. So I'm going to go first just because it's like really a very, very short list. Battlefield, the end. I've put a lot more time into it. I downloaded Halo Infinite, and we played like a couple matches of Repo, but I'm not really counting that yet because I still don't quite know how that game works. I only played for like a handful of time. But yeah, Battlefield, I've really been hitting my stride with it. And I'm not gonna go into like a bunch of details, but that is pretty much all I've been playing this week. So
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right.
You enlighten me as far as what you've been playing.
So I mean, I'm pretty much almost in the same boat where like I haven't played too much. If I haven't mentioned it already, I did beat Silent Hill 2 after I went back to replay it. Nothing but good things to say about that game. Classic. I was about to splurge about it a bit, and it reminded me that I'm pretty sure I already announced I completed it, so I'm going to move on. I've been playing through the first Silent Hill much more slowly because I'm like playing it, as a group, so it's like I can only not everybody's available at any one time, but I do like that game. Very appreciate what it is. It's still one of the classics. Something it has a lot of things that the remake is definitely going to fuck up when that comes out, but it's whatever. Got my gacha rotation. I got my fighting game rotation. I've been forcing our buddy Tom to play an F-Zero game, so it's been fun watching him do that.
I sense sarcasm there.
It's a very difficult game, that game, but yeah. So I mean, that's pretty much it's been light for me too. I downloaded a lot of stuff to play, but I haven't gotten around to playing just about anything yet. So I still have we still have like a week left in this spooky month. 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks realistically. I was gonna say a week and a half, but it is really just 2 weeks essentially. So I'm gonna try and squeeze in a couple more spooky games. I thought we had less time. That's actually very nice. That as far as right now, that's what I've been playing.
As on the subject of downloading games but not playing them, I did install Arc Raiders, the server slam, but our schedules did not line up, so I just have not gotten to play. I actually jumped in to one game on my own, got bodied, and then I'm like, I'm not doing this without a team, so I just closed it. But actually, this kind of leads me into the first thing that I want to talk about, that being Arc Raiders itself. Apparently, the server slam absolutely blew up. It was a really good showing for the game overall, and I found a player chart comparison on I think I pulled it off of N4G, but it's the side-by-side between Arc Raiders playtest and just Call of Duty, just full stop, just COD. And the 24-hour peak for Arc Raider for the server slam was 187,000, and the 24-hour peak for COD, I guess at the time of that this was taken, was 49,000. So quite a bit more. Not that they're in direct competition with Call of Duty, because that's really not it's not the same type of game, but I just found it interesting. And every single person, channel, whatever that I follow that has been been playing Arc has just been gushing about it. It's been like nonstop Blaze Fest. Yeah. And I wish I could partake in that, but here we are. Because the server slam and the closed beta that happened previously, obviously both of those things were free so long as you got into it. But the game itself is going to be a $40 product. So I'm not saying I'm not going to buy it, but I don't really know if I like it yet, because I haven't played it. And I am partial to extraction shooters, especially the specific titles that feature PvE enemies fights in it, which is what attracted me in the first place. But number one, the AI is actually like legitimately challenging, and number two, it obviously is just a better experience overall if you go into it with a full team and not just solo. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not really gonna know if it's worth it until after it comes out, and then again, you know, I'm not just gonna buy it and play it by myself. I'm gonna need two other people. So yeah, I don't know what my future holds with this game, but it looks cool. I just hope that I like it.
Yeah.
So there is that. I mean, I know you said that you installed it over the weekend, but
yes.
I don't think that you've played it. Have you?
I have not. I was waiting for the opportunity to play with other people, and
yeah,
our schedules didn't line up. I have another buddy. I didn't get a chance to play it with him. Just didn't pan out. You know.
Yeah, but anyway, Arc Raiders is apparently very, very good. People are really enjoying it. It's getting huge numbers, and I guess we'll see what happens when it comes out. I don't know what it would take for me to actually purchase it, aside from 2 other people buying it that are going to play with me.
I have a feeling you would need like another, like, and I don't think it's going to get this, but it would need like another demo run, and your schedule would need to align with people you can play it with, and then I think you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm on board.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Well, I mean, to be fair, my schedule does line up with you and Harrison pretty often, but then it's the fact that I have to shell out the money for it. So one half of that equation is solved. Just have to see how the game is, I guess. But anyway, moving on from that.
Yes.
I'm going to jump around a little bit, but
well, actually, no, I've got stuff I gotta say, Dan.
Okay.
Because I like to say is when I have updates, I like to get them out of the way early, and we just got done with what we've been playing and also what we haven't been playing with Arc Raiders. So while you're getting your stuff in order, I'm just gonna fly through a couple small updates, and one of them you probably might have a comment on, so we're gonna see what happens. First and foremost, about 3 weeks ago, when I was talking about Ananta, I said that it was going to be a massive 250 gigabytes. I remember that. Yeah, that was based on early people digging around in the files for playtesting. Since then, it's been we've been informed that it is going to be much smaller. 250 will be around the cap if you want to like download textures and additional language packs, but the core files should be below 100, like around like 80, maybe even smaller than. I forget the exact number, and somebody out there is going to kill me for forgetting those numbers, but I did forget the exact number. I think it's somewhere between 50 and 80, I think is the final thing. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Much
the 100 plus gig threshold to GTA.
Yeah, exactly. And even then, everybody should be beneath that. I'm not forgiving. I'm not saying, oh, some games deserve to be up there and some games don't. We should really be trying to recover the lost art of compression and optimization. But for Ananta, it's going to be a little bit more palatable to everybody who is interested in it.
Yeah. Like you download COD, it's like a mandatory 80 gig download, and then if you want the other modes, it's you're easily like 150 gig or something like that. Meanwhile, Battlefield, when you download everything with all the with everything, it's like 60 gigs. You know, like there's no fucking reason why a game can't be massive like and look as good as Battlefield does and still be under 70 gigs.
The Call of Duty thing is just ridiculous to me because it's like I don't have a problem with there being a Call of Duty launcher. I have a problem with there being a Call of Duty launcher that's mandatory and has a lot of back-end files that you are forced to download, but you can also sift through and delete things, but not really, because if you delete the wrong thing, you got to re-download it. It's a disaster. It's been a disaster since Vanguard came out and they started juggling 3 games, but that's a whole other thing. Here's something you might have a comment on because you did mention it before. We've been talking a lot about Borderlands 4. I hear the player count dropped off by 85%.
Yes, that is accurate. The player count definitely dropped off. I'm in that 85%. Okay. Not because I don't like it or because I think it's bad or I got bored of it. No, I mean it's as simple as Battlefield came out, and I'm a big Battlefield fan, just like I'm sure millions of other people, and I would just rather play that right now.
That's fair.
And also, like the way that Borderlands 4 has handled its endgame has been a little lackluster for me. Like I know in the past, like you beat the game and then you could replay it on Ultimate Vault Hunter mode or like the Mayhem mode. That's what it's called. But like nobody liked that, so they took it out. I actually liked going through the campaign again and just getting better shit. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a diehard Borderlands fan, but once you beat Borderlands 4, it's not like you can go boss farming and everything, but I don't think that's that much fun. Besides going through the big checklist that is the enormous map of Borderlands, there was nothing that really stuck out to me that like, okay, I want to go and do this now to chase this piece of loot that does not include boss farming, and that just got really old really fast for me.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes once the DLC comes out, because Gearbox is definitely making more content for the game. But as of now, like after putting in 30 plus hours of Battlefield, like I'm pretty sure that Battlefield 6 is just going to end up being my main game for the foreseeable future.
Okay, that's fair. I was mainly I brought it up because, like I said, we did talk about it a lot, and I wanted to see you answered my question just telling me about it, how you put it down and whatnot. Because one of the things I hear a lot when people talk about Borderlands, it dropped off hard. The rebuttal I tend to hear about this, and it's one I make too when it comes to certain games, is like, oh well, you beat it and you move on to a different game. And normally I agree with that wholeheartedly when it's like about like RPGs or one and dones. But my understanding, and one of the big defenses of a lot of people when they talk about Borderlands, despite its flaws, you know, regardless of whatever side of the aisle you fall on with that, people tend to say, oh, it's super replayable. You're supposed to beat the game and then you grind out, and it doesn't seem like people are really doing that with Borderlands 4. So that just stood out to me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe if you're like a super hardcore Borderlands fan and you know exactly what you should be going for or doing or what activities to jump on, it might be different. But for us filthy casuals, it's just not that. I don't know. So Battlefield it is for now.
Yep. All right, that's fair. Next up on updates, this is like, it's kind of like a Stop Killing Games update, but it you know, it's just kind of attached to this. The Crew 2 now has an offline mode.
Oh, really? They finally added something like that after the community was up in arms.
I don't know. Could you explain such a thing to me? How does this exist? I thought the world was going to end if this happened. But I thought it was impossible. What happened,
well, it's
Daniel?
like, kind of like you hit a toggle switch on the server side, and all of a sudden you can play something that you own.
Yeah, I could have sworn that doing this was impossible and would have destroyed the industry. So I'm a little confused as to how it exists. So the last update I have before we get into news and stories proper is Assassin's Creed Shadows was in the news again. I don't know if you saw anything about this.
Was it something about an expansion they're working on or something like that?
No, you did hear about that. That was a little further back where even the people that like loved the game didn't really care for the expansion. It was kind of crap. But unless there's a new one coming down the pipe that I don't know about.
I can't help but to laugh at this because like Assassin's Creed has been in the shitter in my opinion for like the past 10 years.
Yeah,
like they just can't catch a fucking break.
Yep. That first expansion, if we're talking about the same thing anyway, is funny to me because it's like, you know, Assassin's Creed Shadows isn't in the spotlight anymore, so you don't have like that like Warfront mentality that a lot of these guys have. So all the people left who are actually playing this fucking thing are just going, this kind of sucks. But that actually kind of leads into what I was going to say is the guy that was in charge of Assassin's Creed at the time, what's his name? Mark Alexis Cote, or Cote, however you pronounce it. He is no longer at Ubisoft. He is gone after nearly 2 decades.
Long time.
Yeah, long time. What
is the reason for the resignation or the departure?
It's funny that you asked that. He, quote unquote, said, Ubisoft has asked me to step aside.
Oh, I did hear about this.
Yeah, kind of a ooh moment, huh? And I'm just like, you know, the only thing in the back of my mind is I'm just thinking about all the people that went over time to talk about how amazing Shadows was and all this stuff, and how it was the best seller on the PlayStation day one and all that kind of stuff, and months later it was #1 in Europe or whatever. And in the back of my mind, I'm just going, where the fuck are those sales numbers, man? We still don't have sales numbers for Assassin's Creed Shadows, the best Assassin's Creed ever, leading the charge, you know. So good that, you know, China was able to sweep in and you had to fire your boss. crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. But yeah, I just figure, you know, whenever something happens with Assassin's Creed or you know, the fallout from Shadows, I'm just gonna slip it in the update section, because I'm infinitely amused by people who told me that it was gonna be like the greatest thing ever and whatnot, you know. So yeah, but with that, that's all I have for updates. So if you want to get into the stories proper, you can lead the way.
Okay, yeah, I mean the probably the first and least surprising thing that I have to say is the overall Battlefield 6 player counts and like some of the early bugs that we were encountering. I mean, the bugs are yeah, like hit or miss, because I've been putting a lot of time into the game. I haven't really noticed anything game breaking or like terribly noticeable. What is noticeable though is the overall peak player count for Battlefield 6. It is, yeah, it reached I think it was 725,000 players, like just something preposterous for for Battlefield, especially like a modern Battlefield game. And when I say modern, I don't mean like modern setting like Modern Warfare. I mean like of the recent Battlefield games, like there is no world in which EA was expecting those kind of numbers, I think. And I mean, they said they wanted to get like 10 million players. I don't know in what context they were referring to that as, but the all-time 24-hour peak, or just the all-time peak of the game hitting like relatively close to 1 million players concurrently is fucking crazy. That's absolutely insane. And who would have thought that, you know, with DICE pretty much playing it safe with the Battlefield game would have done the trick. Also, like, what a crazy concept that you listen to what your players and your community have been asking for like 7 years, and you actually do it, and then you're surprised when the player base explodes. I don't know. Man.
The crazy thing, the crazy thing about it to me is that you know, you use the word, you said listen to your fans and your feedback and whatnot. And I wouldn't even say they did a perfect job at that. They definitely, like, it's almost like they didn't like lend an ear, they just tilted slightly in that direction. And it's amazing what that and your one of your main competitors just completely shitting the bed can just do wonders for your numbers, you know.
Yeah, just completely bonkers. So again, like, and it's not even like they played it totally completely safe, because there are some maps that like I just don't care for. Ironically, one of them is actually the New York map, like New York City, and I mean we both live in New York, like an hour drive from the city. So that's just very ironic in my opinion. Another big thing, another point of contention / controversy was the open weapon system. They still have a closed weapon playlist. You kind of have to go out of your way to find it. But it has been, how do I word this? It's been pretty apparent that the people who play Battlefield 6 regularly, they will self-impose the closed weapon system into every game mode. And it's not even because not perks, but the benefits that you get with playing with your class's weapon archetype is like anything outrageously good. People just want to play Battlefield for how it was meant to be played. And like I said, they played it safe and it worked out, but even like it's just like a giant gentleman's agreement, and everyone is adhering to it. I mean, I see the occasional like assault run around with a sniper or something, or an engineer run around with an LMG or an assault rifle instead of an SMG. But en masse, it has been like a gentleman's agreement where everyone has just been using the weapons for their classes. It just goes to show like how hungry people have been for a good, like an honest to goodness classic Battlefield experience. And I'm having a good time with it. There's like the occasional match where I just have a bad game, but that's to be expected. But yeah, Battlefield 6 doing great, big numbers. While I'll save this for the next one, but so that's always good. And I have yet to jump into Portal. I still really want to putz around with it. I just have not really. I keep on coming back to the fact that I just want to play a game instead of I want to create something. So I haven't really touched Portal yet. So yeah, that's what's been going on in the world of Battlefield. So Yeah, I mean, I have yet. You still need to get it.
Yeah.
You definitely still need to get it. um, anyway, should I keep going, or you have something else you want to say?
I could interweave and just throw in some of my small stuff if you're so inclined.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, some a little small thing from my corner of the world is somebody interviewed the GOG guys recently.
Okay.
And they asked them about the original Resident Evil trilogy, and the guy in charge of the project had basically said it was incredibly difficult to convince Capcom that people wanted the original 3 games on the PC, like in an updated port fashion, because the original games 1 and 2 in particular got very weird re-release, had a very weird re-release history across different regions. I think there's like 3 versions of the Japanese game, a couple versions of the Europe, and then like the one weird American, and none of them really run that well unless you know what you're doing and you go and you tweak some settings and compatibility and all that stuff. And this is all to say that Capcom's response was basically, we have all the remakes that are superior to the original games, and everybody just kind of had this moment of, slapping their hand on their heads going, what are you talking about? Like, here's the thing. Classic survival horror games get a bad rap. A lot of people get filtered by the tank controls and the fixed camera angles, and there's a lot of people out there that just can't handle a certain graphics quality, right? But at a certain point, when you have somebody walking up to you and basically saying like, hey, people love these games, we're going to do the legwork, just help us out with the licensing, especially with Capcom, who is very easy with licensing, because like you'll see cheap knockoff toys of all their different properties all over the place. Their movie track record is just whoever will pay enough, you can make a movie. But it's just, it frustrates me to hear such a thing from, like I said, I'm not a fanatic. I'm not going to say they can do no wrong. I'm never about that, but they have so many of my favorite properties under the umbrella of this Capcom, and it sucks to hear something like that,
Yeah. I've been going through that nonstop between all the different properties that I like too.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's not an unheard story, that's for fucking sure. I'm more peeved that they consider, like, because I can splurge up and down about the original remake for Resident Evil. I say original because I have a feeling at a certain point they're going to remake Resident Evil 1 again, and I'm not looking forward to that. But
absolutely.
That original remake is such a stellar example of how you handle a remake, and one of the 2 ways you can handle it. I always say you either need to be incredibly faithful, or you need to expand on the original ideas in a faithful way. They did the second. But they consider that in the same category as the new RE Engine remakes, and I don't hate the new RE Engine remakes except for 3, which sucks, and I think 4 was really unnecessary. But the whole point, as just a fan of Resident Evil, is those change a lot of the original intent, and it's almost like a split timeline kind of thing. So I'm very peeved, not only that they were just like, oh well, the new games are superior, like why wouldn't you just go play the new games, but also the fact that they made changes in these remakes, so it's kind of like a more concrete replacement in their mind, and that irks me as far as like the direction of where the series could go, so just a little small thing from my neck of the woods that I'm bothered by, because there's just no shortage of those.
Yeah, that list is, I was gonna say, that list is literally never ending.
Yeah. on a smaller note that's kind of related to that, somebody interviewed Miyamoto recently, and I'm waiting to see if this is a translation error, because Miyamoto guy, he can be a bit full of himself, he can be a bit tone deaf, and he's credited with why the Mario series has kind of been like more sterile and bland over the years, as opposed to like back in the GameCube and Nintendo 64 days, where developers could come in and do a lot with the property and do unique things. That's where you get the original Paper Mario, that's where you get the sports games and stuff like that. He apparently was asked why Nintendo is going so hard into film lately, right? Like, they have the Legend of Zelda thing coming out eventually. They're doing a sequel to the Mario movie. They recently released a short for Pikmin, where it was just out of the blue. They uploaded so they just uploaded a Pixar level short for some, I don't know if it's a tease for a new Pikmin project or if it was just a cutesy little thing they wanted to do. Everybody was confused by it, but they asked him, and he basically, the answer he gave was something along the lines of, games, unlike movies, they can't be enjoyed over time or something like that. I think the implication was that he found it, I think he was talking the logistical hurdles, where he's basically saying like it's hard for you to find and play these games years later where you could watch a movie from like 100 years ago if you wanted to, right? And to that I have to say, let's take that at face value, because even if that's not what he said, most developers and heads in the industry have that kind of thought process, but in the inverse, where they talk about a lot of like, oh well, the old game is hard to play and you can't buy it. I don't have backwards compatibility. What are you going to do? So we'll just re-release it, or we'll remake it, or you just won't be allowed to play it, right? Meanwhile, if you know what you're doing, you can go back and play just about anything. But let's just take that at face value. And my only response to that is like, you guys have the keys, so you either need to like work on games preservation on your end, or just stop fighting against the people who are working on games preservation as they are one to do. Because I'm sitting there going, ESA, that whole group that's fighting against stop killing games right now, I know Nintendo's represented by that board, so like, if you say it's too difficult, the least you can do is just back the fuck up and just be hands off with emulation. I do think he was likely misquoted, or like the translation isn't one-to-one, but I know for a fact that he's not necessarily for games preservation in the same way that a lot of people are. These guys, they either have no idea what they're talking about with the issue, or are actively working against game preservation. And I'm not saying that it's a dead thing, but it's basically, it's something that companies drag their feet with. They almost always say it's impossible, and by the time they offer a strategy, it's rarely the popular one. There's just a disconnect there. Ironically, the only company that really worked good on this is Xbox. And and here's the thing, I love a lot of the Xbox classics. They do have a stellar lineup of games to go back through and play, but at the same time, compared to PlayStation and Nintendo, they do struggle a bit with I guess you could say it's the weakest of the three libraries. Let's just be honest about it. Yeah, but that's the
thing with these companies with like game preservation. There's no interest in it for them, because I was gonna say more people would want to go back and play the older classics than buy and play the new games, but I don't think that that's true. Like it's kind of like a victimless crime in my opinion, because they're still gonna make whatever they're gonna make on the new games. I don't think it would cause that much of a dent in their bottom line to the point where they would have to really go out of their way and take some kind of legal action. So I don't really understand it.
It's a mixture of, as you said, they don't really have the incentive to do it unless they are invasive about it, and the other side of it is there are a great deal of people at the top that just don't get it. But the one thing they do get is that if you try to do it yourself and like emulate or whatever, they see that as like a slight against them, or some kind of like great wrong that needs to be corrected.
Or loss of control. That's a big one too, I think.
Yeah, we've talked about that before for sure. It's they don't like not having control over everything.
Yeah. Well, that definitely sucks, and I don't know if it'll ever get better. But on to more positive things.
Yes, please.
Not like a terribly big thing, but I have definitely brought up the game Exodus on the show. Yes, so
indeed.
It's a bunch of ex-BioWare developers, and which I'm sure it's a lot of other devs from other places, or maybe they're just getting into the industry or something. But they're really, so it's Archetype Entertainment. That's the name of the studio, and they are a lot of the devs are coming from like classic BioWare, like OG Mass Effect trilogy. And we had a new, I wouldn't call it like an info dump, but more of like a development update of just showing what they're working on. They had this like lengthy AMA that they posted on YouTube, or not AMA. I'm sorry, Q&A. They posted on YouTube, and all the screenshots and everything they're describing, it really seems like the spiritual successor to Mass Effect, and they didn't really show anything new. They were just kind of talking about the game and how they're going about building it and the design philosophy into making the game. But every time I see it, I'm like, ooh, this looks like Mass Effect. I want it. So I'm definitely excited for it. I think after this development update, I'm a little bit more hyped than I was before. And I know I've said this in the past, but Drew Kapershin, right? That's how you pronounce it. He was the original writer for the Mass Effect trilogy, and he wrote the game for Exodus. So that is like a huge W in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely looking forward to that. So that was just a small thing update on Exodus, just because I'd like to keep it on top of my mind. So anyway, let's see. Moving on. What else we got here? Modern Warfare 3 developer worried about Game Pass. Okay, immensely worried about what will happen to Call of Duty under Xbox. Okay, this is really more of like an opinion / hot take / like, oh, this one guy said something that worked on this notable game.
Yes.
I am inclined to agree with him only because he probably has more insights into the industry than either of us do. I mean, obviously he's an actual developer, but fortunately, once you're simulated by one of these companies, I think you take on some of their traits. Oh, Glenn Schofield said this. Okay, so he was like the lead at Sledgehammer, so he's not nobody. Yeah, man, I don't know. Xbox is in such a precarious position. No one seems to really care about Call of Duty anymore. They're raising the price of Game Pass. They're raising the price of everything across the board for Xbox, not even just Game Pass.
Yeah.
And they don't even really have anything coming out that I'm like, this looks, not even this looks awesome, that this looks cool. I haven't seen anything for Gears of War E-Day, so I can't even say that it looks cool yet. They just showed off a pretty cinematic that kind of gives off the overall tone of Gears, but did nothing to actually sell you on the game other than the fact that they're just working on it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's probably right, but I don't know. I think that most developers whose games wind up on Game Pass are small enough to the point where they're not just going to adopt traits of shitty business practices or just straight up greed. So I don't really know what to make of this. It's very cryptic, in my opinion.
It's just it's a lot of it's he's just echoing what a lot of people are saying about it, and the thing is, I don't necessarily think that in the long run these kind of predictions are correct. But I also think that it's very unlikely for Xbox to end up with the most positive outcome possible, because when you look at Game Pass and acquisitions and all that stuff, obviously like they need to make the money back somehow, and I think it's just going to be a massive series of growing pains that are going to equate to things like what he just said, where he's just like, I don't think Game Pass is good for the industry. And I'm not rushing out to do this in defense of Game Pass or the different Xbox changes that they've made. I just understand why they're happening. It's just a matter of whether or not, the other end of this is something that's pretty for everybody involved.
Yeah. Game Pass really seems to be a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it was bolstered by Microsoft's raw willingness to spend a shit ton of money, but now it's like the checks do. So you're gonna end up with a lot of interesting, to say the least, decisions as far as the direction of Game Pass, coupled with a lot of nightmare stories from developers that basically, it's almost like when Epic Games swoops in to do an exclusivity deal, right? It's almost the same thing there, where like a lot of developers at the end of it claim like, yeah, I made some money from this because of the deal. People paid me for exclusivity. In this case, on Xbox, it would be licensing rights. But at the end of the day, it doesn't reflect necessarily in a healthy way for the properties represented. I do think there's a little bit more leeway with Xbox in that regard, because more people are playing it. It's not 1-to-1 with Epic Games Launcher because nobody fucking uses the thing. But no, it's like you said, it's a precarious position for Xbox, so we'll see where that ends up. But you're going to be hearing more stories like this. It's not the first time somebody said something about Xbox Game Pass and its effect on games, right? And it's not going to be the last because, like I said, regardless of what happens on the other end of this transitionary period where Xbox makes moves to make their money back and other things get pulled up in the process, you're going to hear people are going to fall off of the boat as it's rocking, so to speak. So that's
a good metaphor.
Yeah, so just expect to hear more stories like this regardless of where we end up.
Yeah. All right, so do you have anything else to I mean, I'm sure you do, but there's only one other thing I wanted to get to that is like pretty noteworthy.
Yeah,
I think
fine.
Both of our opinions are maybe wanted on this. So.
Yeah, then if that's the case, I'll just go through the other small things I had and the one medium thing, and then we'll end with whatever you were. So
let's hear it.
This is. I'll get the more ranty thing out of the way because it's more of just like it is a rant in the purest form because I didn't even bother to engage with what's being represented here. So Splinter Cell Deathwatch came out.
Right, the animated series on Netflix.
Yes, that we talked a little bit about, and I had my thoughts, and everybody had their guesses and whatnot. But I'm done really pretending that in these cases where like an animated series comes about and everybody has like their hesitations because of who's behind it and just the trends of these things in the industry. I'm tired of pretending there's a reasonable chance of these things, in these things, there being some kind of context or something that makes it better, right? And while I enjoy Splinter Cell a reasonable amount and far more than the people that made this, I don't love it enough to sit through this garbage. This isn't Devil May Cry or Castlevania or Guilty Gear, where I have a history with the series as one of my favorites and have like some kind of obligation to see what's going on, you know, in a way that they don't get my money or my viewership numbers, you know. I wouldn't lower myself to paying for the privilege, but pretty much everything, all the bad things that people expected were true. You know, I have some cliff notes. Yeah. You know, it's a bait and switch. Sam is some disgruntled old man that is just there to play backseat to the real brave and diverse protagonist, and he spends most of his time being pathetic compared to her, or just being pathetic in general. There is a full-on ESG boardroom meeting that you as an audience need to sit through.
That sounds awful, by the way. Like, holy shit.
Oh, yeah. All of the women in the series, including ones that are from the game, are like these weird, ugly, men-shaped objects, except for the main character, for some bizarre reason. The female villain is one of those like, oh, she never really did anything wrong at the end of it, and she gets her own redemption, and it's really her brother's the bad guy. It's so weird and on the nose. Like, I don't like to talk about like the actual undergirding like cultural stuff because I don't think that really serves, you know, anybody. I like to point at like how things get to this point, but it was the clips I've seen and the descriptions I've read, really on the nose stuff. But basically, long story short, is this whole thing was just another humiliation ritual for the series, made by people who don't give a shit, who just had an agenda to push. And you know, I think when we first talked about the show, we both talked about how it's like, oh, you know, we're both due for going back and replaying it. It's like I almost feel relieved that I hadn't done it before hearing about this, you know. So that came out, that came and went. It was just another piece of crap. Might get a season 2 because all these things get, again, preemptively greenlit for 2 seasons. That's part of the package. It's part of the deal. Now, moving on from that little small thing, you know, something that really only interests me. PlayStation, they had a concert series going on. I don't know if you heard about this.
I did not. No.
Yeah, video game concerts aren't as big as they used to be. They still happen, but only on rare and special occasions. With PlayStation had one going on. It was called PlayStation The Concert. And about 2 weeks ago. It was
Spaceballs, the movie.
Yeah, just like that. And it was quietly just. It was quietly just no, it's fine. It was quietly just swept under the rug. It's just gone. It's done. All the showings are canceled. Okay. And I'm sitting there just going, that doesn't surprise me, because one of the things I like to gripe about is the decline of quality video game music. Like, PlayStation in particular has a lot of classics, be it, that are exclusive to their console or had deep partnerships with their console. Like you have, things like Final Fantasy, Persona. You have classics like Hitman comes to mind, because early Hitman games had really good techno. You had, more, not necessarily, blowouts, but classic tunes and things like Jack and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank, Sly Cooper, all these different classic franchises that had good music. None of that was represented. It's just new God of War, Horizon, Last of Us. Last of Us, I'll give a little bit of credit. They do have those rather nice acoustic guitar tracks, which
that even might be the only nice thing you've ever said about The Last of Us.
Yeah,
ever.
because my thing about it is, like, I understand it's not for me. I can give credit where it's due. Even though I don't think they're amazing, it is unique in the pool of what PlayStation offers. But it's just like, again, it's just kind of disappointing. I'm not saying a video game concert was going to do gangbusters one way or the other, but it's it's skeevy to me to see such a storied legacy console like the PlayStation trot out only the new stuff, the bland orchestral stuff, and just embarrassingly have to cancel it like before its completion. And it makes me once again look back and just all the different series that had a history with this brand you could peek in and get, or like, so one way or the other. Like, I look at the Game Awards, like how they always have the orchestral bit right before they do the Game of the Year award. I always love looking forward to that. Say what I will about the show, but those little performances right before they do the Game of the Year award itself, I typically dig it. I think it's neat. But yeah, video game music is just on the downturn.
Speaking of video game music, it's funny that you should bring this up.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna save it. Save it because it kind of ties into something else a little bit. But you have to remind me about video game music. Right?
Okay.
Because I'll remember what I was gonna say.
Okay.
That's so I'm sorry for cutting you off for literally nothing. Please continue.
No, it's fine. It's fine. But that's basically all I had to say is they had a little, another black eye moment where they just had to quietly cancel their artsy fartsy, like, we're going to do a concert and it'll be all the curated, lovely orchestral pieces of our PlayStation Studios cinematic lineup, and it's gone. It's dead in the water. So there's that. I have basically only one other thing. It's medium sized, but I gotta give credit where credit's due. And it might turn into a little bit of a rant. Just buckle in. I swear I'm not going to take up the rest of our time for this episode. All right.
Okay.
So, Tomonobu Itagaki, the creator of Dead or Alive and the revival series of Ninja Gaiden, sadly passed away on October 16th at the age of 58. Yeah, a big sad loss for the industry. It was announced on Facebook. He left a little message for somebody he trusted to put out there, and this is what he said. He said, "The light of my life is about to run out. The fact that this sentence has been posted means it's finally time. I am no longer in this world. My life has been a series of battles. We stayed winning. I've caused a lot of trouble. I stand by my beliefs, no regrets. I just feel sorry to all my fans that I can't deliver my new work. Sorry. It is what it is, so it goes." And everybody was kind of like, oh God, please let this be just like a misfire, that the person you left this with was wrong, and it turned out to be the case that he was no longer with us. A lot of people are implying it's cancer because he was a heavy smoker, and that's just something that's in the culture of Japan, the workers. But we don't really know. Doesn't really matter. The guy's gone. He was something else. I'm not gonna sit here and weep pretending he was my favorite creator in the world. That's not me. But he certainly made things I enjoyed and was something the industry desperately needed more of. where today we have developers and companies and activists and journalists talking about how all the different things that have been chipped away don't matter, never mattered, and how you should get over it, and how they're going to remove more, and making games that are for everyone is the way to go, offend nobody. It's all this reductive talk, in a way that holds back the creators in the industry. He knew what he liked and what people liked, and shamelessly put it in his games in a way where all these things mattered. The experience was elevated. It either mattered to the experience or it elevated the experience, right? And it's reflected in all the things that he's most well known for, than the things that I led with. You have the Ninja Gaiden revival of the original 2D series. It's widely regarded as one of the best and hardest action series around. It's up there. Action games are kind of niche in a lot of ways, nowadays, but it's just like, it's up there with the Devil May Cries and the Bayonettas. And then aside from that, you have Dead or Alive, which is one of the smoothest, most well choreographed, best looking, and entertaining games in the 3D fighting game group. Now, I have more to say about Dead or Alive because of a lot of the stuff that's gone on in my side of the world of fighting games, but I do really like Ninja Gaiden. Dead or Alive is actually called Dead or Alive the same reason that Final Fantasy is called Final Fantasy. It was a make or break title for the company. If it didn't do well, the company would be dead. If it did well, the company would be alive. He talked about this a while ago in an interview with G4, but it ended up turning out spectacularly and is very well around to this day. Now, when I bring up Dead or Alive, a lot of people kind of have this kind of this head tilt moment, right, when you bring up Dead or Alive, because I remember this one time that me, you, and Eric were doing a Modern Warfare raid, and the topic of Dead or Alive came up, and I think Eric's response to me was like, "Aren't you glad, Anthony? I would never sell myself short," or something to that degree. Even boobies wouldn't get me to play this game, I think is the direct quote. Say what I will about the part that led up to that, but that was, I know for a fact that's what he said. And so I imagine what people
even boobies wouldn't get me to play this game.
But here's the thing. What I'm getting at with this is, I imagine what people like you and Eric and Joe, what they think when they hear Dead or Alive, and they typically think of the fan service. You guys tend to laugh or scoff or chuckle a little bit because of its surface level reputation. The like, oh, even boobies can't get me to play the game. Tee-hee, that's the booby game, right? And to a degree, that's fair, because the leading partner, Xbox, leaned into it. There was like there were a bunch of magazine ads. I remember one said famously, "Tissues not included." They leaned into it, the marketing team, right? There was and power to them. My whole thing with it is always going to be like I said, the guy he knew what everybody liked. There's a famous interview where he basically he's quoted saying, he's like, "Violence, beauty, sex, gambling, you put that all in the game, it's what people want," is basically what he was saying, right? And he said it himself. Why would he not put beautiful women in his game? And I'm not going to pretend they didn't lean into it, because they did, but there was much more to it. The game played good. Like I said, I highlighted the choreography because how everything comes together when people are landing hits. It's to the point where, like, for a while those ads were all over the place and everybody laughed at them because they were ridiculous, people weren't talking about it. When you actually sat down and played them, people weren't talking about that. It was nice to look at, but they talked about the complete package and how it was action-oriented. But where I'm going with this is, more unfortunate side note, is that while every single controversial thing, quote-unquote controversial, I could not put enough quotes around it, that he put in the games, he always had a reason behind them. Like, Ninja Gaiden had violence and dismemberment, and that affected how the AI would adapt and change. Nobody gives a shit because nobody, shits on violence and gore. That's just okay for some reason. But with Dead or Alive, they would always attack the fan service and the way things looked and all that kind of stuff. And, again, you look at the way that somebody like, you or Joe or Eric, how would you kind of just say, like, oh, it's fan service or whatever. So I would immediately assume to myself, or like the thing you would assume is like, okay, how do the people who actually play fighting games, how do they treat the series? How would you gauge? What would you guess, Dan? How do you think actual fighting game players and the community, the fighting game community, we'll put it that way, treated this series?
Pretty shitty.
Oh
Maybe?
yes, they treated it worse than the people who would just walk past it and scoff at it because of how it was advertised, right? So there was a time years ago. I don't remember. I've mentioned him to you before, but I don't know if you remember. Do you remember Joey Cellular Squalar, however his last name's pronounced?
It sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah, I've definitely talked to you about it before. His handle was Mr. Wizard. Do you remember that?
That also rings a bell, but I don't remember the exact conversation.
He's one of the founders of Evo, and one of his last actions as the head of Evo, before he was outed as being into kids, was to say that Dead or Alive and a recent showing it had at Evo Japan that year in 2019 didn't align with Evo's quote-unquote core values. So, in this Puritan wave that like just was sweeping over all the online communities, the shit that we talk about all the time, you had the guy at the top, once again a pedophile, so you know, take your word for whatever it is. He came out and said like, oh, all this the nature of these games and like how the presenters were, you know, talking about the game and the way they acted on stage. It wasn't part of Evo's core values, and that trickled down to this game being basically blackballed everywhere. Like influencers always talk bad about it. You know, when the series started taking, you know, steps to go in a direction that influencers wanted, which was more tame and free to play, they still shunned it. You know, people all the way up to this guy's death were basically saying that Dead or Alive is just it's a bad series. You know, it has no place in the fighting game community. You can never take it seriously, all that stuff, despite it having one of the best 3D games ever made. So despite being a legacy fighting franchise, despite being a good legacy fighting franchise, despite being a series that has had consistent releases up until the most recent game, despite being an available 3D fighter in a competitive scene that desperately needs 3D fighters, despite the last two games trying to cater to these fucking morons with all the toning down and, you know, removing things that made it great or hiding things that made it great, from the gameplay to the character designs to the environments, despite being the only AAA fighting series to try the free-to-play model, which everybody says that the genre needs to live and die, to survive, otherwise it's going to fucking die, something, you know, that they've been begging for years, they still shunned the series. Whenever it came up, they'd bitch about it. Even when Itagaki wasn't with the company anymore, they whinged about the series in the same breath they'd used to cheer about changes made and things toned down after he was no longer there. And they would still be doing this if he hadn't just died, right? I need to be clear about this. These people would still be, you know, just rattling off all the ways that he was bad and his series was not serious and all that kind of stuff. In fact, there are some people still are. Some people never stopped hating on the guy. Like, you know, the day he died, you had people like throwing around the quotes, like one of the ones I listed where he's talking about, you know, all the things he puts in the game, like why wouldn't he do these things? People were just like, oh, so his, you know, they were criticizing the wrong word because they're just kind of blindly hating on the guy, but they were saying like, oh, so we didn't really lose anything of value, or all this sucks or whatever.
Yeah, there's always people like that. Just
there's always animals. Yeah, I know, but it's just like these people are like proud fighting game community members. It's not like they're a step up above anonymous. I know there's still just random jackasses on the internet. I'm not personally bothered; those people do exist, but I find it stunning that they always, I check the bio and it's like proud FGC member. Typically, and it's funny to me, it's one of the nice things I can say about Guilty Gear players is that the fucking strivers, they've remained consistent. They continued shitting on the man throughout this because, again, Guilty Gear just attracts the worst fucking people available now. They were shitting on the guy the second he died. But all this leads to my frustration, which is that for the whole week since he died, people were posting clips about the game. A lot of this is genuine, but they were just talking about how great it looked, how, you know, awesome, you know, Dead or Alive 4 gets a lot of love because it's really cool, but a lot of them really push whatever console they were on. They're just talking about how all the little details that were put in, how great it looks even when you're not landing consistent combos, the choreography, the beautiful environments, the cool looking characters, the sexy looking characters, nothing but praise for everything that he fought for in his game, and it was toned down after he left, and the people were cheering it on as that was happening. So to me, and anyone who has seen how this series has been treated, it comes off as this hollow, fake recognition from people who either gave up on the series to go along with what the popular opinions were in these modern times, and people who are true believers of the values that lead to these modern times. You know, I think it's wild to me because everybody was posting the clips, and I went back and I rewatched an old interview on G4 TV, right? And they had this part of on the channel where it was called Icons, and they interviewed him, and they gushed over this man. Like, they were talking about Dead or Alive in Itagaki like they were just awesome. You have Jeff Keighley, young Jeff Keighley, on the show talking about how great the games were playing, how great the games looked, how they were pushing the hardware at the time, which was Xbox, and how the man that made it was a fucking rock star. You know, and it's all handled. It's so funny to me. It's handled in such a tactful way. Like, yeah, they talked about the way the female characters looked and all that stuff. They talked about the Beach Vacation, the volleyball game, which was new at the time, and how it was made specifically for the fans that wanted a volleyball mini game in like older versions of Dead or Alive. They just made a whole fucking game for it. And it's handled in such a shockingly tactful way for this Dude Bro TV series than the Puritans of today who say they are above it all, and the way they talk about it, it was night and day. I was stunned that I was expecting them to constantly make boob jokes, much like you guys would if I brought up Dead or Alive. They made like
honestly,
3.
That is like the only distinguishing factor from that game that I know of, like back when we were growing up. Yeah, I was never that into fighting games, but yeah, I always knew Dead or Alive was the no, it was a special edition version of the game for like the volleyball setting, right? Like the beach volleyball tournament. Yeah. Right? I'm not wrong on that. That was a special side.
That's what I'm saying. That the extreme volleyball thing is a game they made because they wanted a mini game like that, and they just like, fuck it, we'll make a whole game about it. But it's like, here's the thing. You're free to think that. That's what a lot of people thought. That's what they leaned into for the marketing to kind of get that casual audience. Because 3D fighters have always had this long, ongoing battle for a casual audience. Like I talked about it with the Dragon Ball 3D fighters. Soul Calibur went for it for a while. And, you know, if you're just passing by and you never like take the bait, so to speak, you're going to walk away thinking that's all it is. But at the same time, you're not a fucking idiot. If you were into fighting games and you played it, you would know like, oh shit, so this is what it's all about. And you would realize that enticement that they put on all the ads has equal strong parallels in everything else that the games had to offer. That's basically what I'm trying to convey with this is, there's nothing wrong with the fan service they put in, and even if I was that kind of prude asshole, guess what? The gameplay, the environments, everything else it had to offer was on that same tier of quality of the fan service that everybody liked to get on its case for, you know? So that's, I mean, it's actually funny, humorously, right before he died, there's the Extreme series is the volleyball game you're thinking of. Like, yes. It's its own. It's basically like you have the core series, and then you have, it's literally a fan service spin-off because of those demands from people who wanted it for Dead or Alive 2 and whatnot. And, you know, it hasn't really been around all that much because of this culture that kind of says like, oh, it's awful, it's really just for the weird gamer, you know, hidden rapists or whatever, you know, the people that, you know, can't separate fiction and reality. But it's been living on as a fucking gacha game in Japan, and it's all resurgence recently. It's been going on for 7 years, and it broke into the top 10 selling spot in Japan right before he died. Way to prove a point on the way to prove a point on the fucking way out. The funny thing is, he was vocal about where the series, the core series, went on Facebook. Like, a ton of people knew this guy. Fucking Marty O'Donnell was paying respects to him when he died. Ed Boon was paying respects to him. All these people fucking knew him. And he was, if you messaged him on Facebook, he would answer. And somebody pointed out that he was basically like, he was respectful to the people who were currently leading the series, but noticed all the toning down and realized it was going to lead to a bad spot. And that's kind of where Dead or Alive is after it leaned into the free to play and the esports and the toning down of the core things that made it right. You know, the things that the pedophiles, and I say this verbatim, the pedophiles at the fighting game community said don't align with fighting games in the community. those are the things they decided to tone down. That'll always be funny to me. Not the fact that this guy was looking at kids, but the fact that he, one of his last big statements before COVID happened and before, the people found out what he was into, was to go against Dead or Alive as being some kind of weird sex pest thing, when he is one of the heads at the weird sex pest community.
It's just like when you reach that level of power, only certain things will get you off,
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, do you remember the whole Vince McMahon thing?
Oh, yeah, that too.
Him? Like, same shit. It's the same shit.
I guess
like
some people just can't handle it, man.
The more influential you are, just the weirder you fucking get in the bedroom. That's just what it comes down to.
Strange stuff.
Yeah, very, very. Are you done with your rant? That was a long one.
I just wanted to pay a little respects and then rant about the people that kept him down, because like I said, I'm not Dead or Alive for me and Ninja Gaiden for me. It's like, I played the old 2D Ninja Gaidens. I was late to the party on the Ninja Gaiden revival series, and Dead or Alive, I would put it on the same level as Tekken for me, where it's like I saw it in the arcade, one of the older games, because there was a period of time where it was a console exclusive, and then Dead or Alive 4 for a while was really the only game that me and Harrison had on the Xbox 360 during that console generation jump. So it's like the only game I really associate with the early Xbox, and I would say to kind of keep it relevant, I'm more of a fan of Dead or Alive and Ninja Gaiden than I am Splinter Cell, but I'm not gonna, say like, oh, my hidden fan privilege. I'm just so devastated. It's just, he was a creator we needed more of, and he was shunned unjustly. There's a lot of bad things you could say about him. He was one of the poor guys that bought into NFTs for a hot second, and I think that really hurt his reputation near the end. But as a creator, when it got down to it, he was one of the greats.
Yeah, yes, sir. Okay, we're moving on. I'm ripping you out of this. We're moving on. Okay, the last thing that I want to touch on for this episode is the overall reception / impressions to the. Let's see if I can get this right off the top of my head, based off of memory. No, it's already fucking gone. The Xbox, the Asus ROG Ally. No, I can't do it. I don't know what it is.
the Xbox portable console of dubious naming. Asus Xbox ROG Ally, is that it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, the overall reception to that, like between the performance, the software, the pricing, all of it. I don't think we've really spoke about this yet. But since the last episode we recorded, it came out. A bunch of people got like review models for it, and it seems to me, based off of what I've seen so far from a handful of different outlets and other influencers on YouTube and the internet overall, that it's incredibly niche. And the big hot take, the big point here is, why would you pay? I'm not really gonna talk about the lower end version of the Ally, because I feel like it's not like, if you're gonna end up buying this thing, you're gonna buy the $1,000 model, not the $650 or whatever it is. But the overall take seems to be, why would you spend $1,000 on this when you can spend half of that on a Steam Deck and really do the majority of the same stuff? Maybe you don't get access to like the whole Xbox ecosystem, but they're not exactly putting out bangers right now, so I don't really think that is too relevant at this time. But I have not gotten the chance to hold one or play it or anything like that. I've literally just seen it off of videos and whatnot. Now, because of that, I still maintain my stance of, I am okay with the form factor and the overall size. I like the fact that it's basically like they took an Xbox controller, they split it apart, stuck a big ass screen in the middle, and like the ergonomics they seem like they'd be comfortable for long play sessions. Now, I don't know if that's true, because obviously I haven't touched it before. I have no idea when I'm even going to see one in person, because nobody that I know would ever buy this thing, with the exception of myself, and even that's kind of a long shot. So I don't think this was like the product to quote unquote save Xbox and or like the Microsoft division of gaming, or I'm sorry, the gaming division of Microsoft, because it's not Xbox anymore, right? It's Microsoft Gaming. That's a whole other different fucking can of worms that I don't want to get into right now. But when it was first revealed and announced, I think both of us were like pretty pleasantly surprised with what they were offering. But now that it's actually here, one, now that it's actually here, and two, in recent light of all of these Microsoft blunders, like they can't do anything right, just like fucking Bungie. But I don't really know how I feel about it anymore. I think I would really need to play with it and see what it is and how it feels in the hand, how it performs, like what I could actually do with it between the different launchers and everything. Because it's not running like Linux or anything. It's running Windows, but just a heavily modified version of Windows. So I don't know, man. I don't think this is where they wanted it to land. I don't think this is where they expected it to land. I just don't think that it was what Microsoft wanted at all as far as the reception to it. And I'm not really going to be able to 100% draw a conclusion without getting hands-on on this thing, without going to like a show floor somewhere. I'm not really gonna have the opportunity to hold it and play with it for an extended period of time. So I'm really just looking through the window that is my computer monitor, you know? And now that all this stuff is out, I just think that Microsoft is just way too fragmented. They don't have a solid focus on anything, at least not that I can see. And just to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, you know, for the past year or two, we've kind of been saying, oh, Microsoft is moving away from hardware consoles and going more into like their ecosystem of like the services model. And even then, like, they're not doing a great job, obviously. So I don't really know what they're doing. And the overall reception to the ROG Ally is very mixed, I would put it. So that's my just overall gut reactions off of just seeing it through a screen. So why don't you give me your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I've been hearing pretty much similar to what you've been hearing. The one thing I will add to it is that my understanding is that if you are more of an enthusiast sort, you can go in and you can play around and you can get it running rather well. Like, you can make it work if you know what you're doing with it. And I've even heard some people, you know, manage to put Linux on the fucking thing and like the performance jumps up 30%. And my take on this is that, like, you know, okay, that's neat and all, that if you know what you're doing, you can go in and you can make this run the way that you basically thought it was going to, right? But to go back to like the greater, you know, topic that you were getting at, is that's not the kind of position Xbox hardware needs to be in at this point. It can't be like, it's okay, but if you know what you're doing, you can make it work really well. Like, that's not a good look, especially if
it just popped in my head actually while you were having your stream of consciousness there. I like looking at this from the outside in. I don't know who this is for. You know, Xbox doesn't have a big enough following anymore that it's like for the Xbox guy. So I don't know who this is for. Anyway, that was popped in my head. I wanted to get it out. You can continue.
As for to answer that, actually, what I would say is that it's kind of a shot in the dark, because it's really for it's a two-pronged thing. It's them wanting to get a little bit of ground in the, you know, portable hardware space in a way that they haven't so far, and it's also them like leveraging what little power their brand has as like a kind of, maybe we can get new people to jump on board based on the cool factor of a portable Xbox, even though it's, you know, it's still third-party hardware at the end of the day, right?
And according to Microsoft, the reason why it's so expensive, as far as what I've seen, is because of Asus. They wanted it was something to do with like building it in partnership with Microsoft, and the engineering that went into the actual like design of the handheld, and the fact that they didn't want the overhead, I think. It was mainly their call to price it at the price point that it's at.
Okay.
Yeah.
So overall, I would say that like the problems that you listed and the kind of confusion with like the strategy, it's all very reflective of what I consider just overall. I don't want to say turmoil because that's too harsh to describe it, but like, oh, what the fuck is it called? Like, it's the kind of conflict within the company at multiple levels. We've talked up and down about the different stuff that we think is going on with the gaming division, right? But I think that the way that this thing is optimized kind of reflects in like the people handling software and the people handling, you know, partnership and collaborative projects. I think, and that's, you know, that goes beyond gaming. That's just a general thing. I do think that it doesn't bode well for whatever upcoming Xbox hardware is following the Ally. I'm not saying it's a guarantee it's going to be bad, but it's just like if you have the people, they're like, okay, we have hardware, we need to make this as optimized as possible, this software, right? And obviously they're still doing like, oh, certified for this and certified for that. But if your core operating system isn't running well, how are you going to handle something like the ever teased Xbox PC console hybrid or whatever the hell's coming up next for Xbox, right? It's akin to what I would describe as when Windows 8 was around and they were kind of doing the one ecosystem with the Xbox One at the time, and how like there was a bunch of features between the PCs on Windows and the Xbox and some of the TV stuff and all that stuff, and like it kind of worked in a lot of ways, but also it was kind of janky for other things. Like if we're stepping down from that, that's bad news for the Xbox, because like you're just whittling away more of your strengths for nothing.
Yeah.
So
I think at this point, like, do you have anything else to say, or was that everything?
I pretty much respond to what you were gonna say, but continue.
I think at this point, the next, like, maybe the only quote unquote make or break situation or play for Xbox, for Xbox, Microsoft would be fine. The only make or break play now is whatever they're planning for the next generation.
Yeah.
I think they need to, well, like, take the games out of it and everything, because they swearing up and down that they're not getting out of the hardware game, and they're still going to be making consoles and all that good stuff. I think depending on how they handle this next generation is really going to determine whether or not Microsoft or Xbox stays as one of like the triads of like big gaming players between Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox, because they have just lost ground for what, 14 years now, ever since the Xbox One was announced and released. It's just been year over year, just a big fat L after big fat L every single time, and it's their decisions have been, to quote Pirates of the Caribbean, every decision you have made has led us from bad to worse. So I think that whatever they're planning for the next generation, and we're probably going to get that by 2027, I would guess, that's probably going to be like the big red flag or the big signal that's going to determine what Xbox is going to be going forward, because they just can't continue like this. They just can't.
Yeah.
So, that's my thought.
Yeah. No, it's there's definitely gonna it's everybody's in an interesting position right now. I say everybody because, you know, Xbox, say everybody, you know, the whole console warring stuff aside, because, you know, people love to be like, you know, the second you critique or throw in support with any of the companies, be it Nintendo, Sony, or Xbox, and not even like them directly, but you're just commenting on what's going on with them, you have a lot of people that immediately jump the gun and swear up and down that like you are just, you're a fanboy of some kind or the other. I keep saying this, you do not want, like, we're already rather fragmented between the three companies, where you have PlayStation doing like traditional gaming as a console, but really they're only producing cinematic games. You have Xbox, which is like drifting into service and like putting their stuff on everything, and then you have Nintendo, who's just doing their own thing. The further these three companies splinter or get further, the more unhealthy the industry gets. And if one of them were to leave it entirely, That would be bad. That would be bad news. You really need competition to keep these companies in check and to drive innovation in the space. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, man, it's a real tumultuous one,
Yeah.
and I just I have no idea what they could do, with the exception of now that I'm talking about it. The only thing that it seems like they could do at this point, in my eyes, is go back to what they were doing with the Xbox 360. And from my understanding, the way that Microsoft designed the Xbox 360 basically made it a breeze for devs to create games for that platform, to the point where like people or the developers and studios were like, they were itching to make games for the 360 because it was so easy to do so. And that was not the case for the PlayStation 3. It just it wasn't. I think that you have to go back to that to empower developers to really be as creative as they want, to make experiences that will just knock people's socks off. Because nobody had a fucking dynasty on video games the same way that Microsoft did back in the 360 era. I mean, we had Halo, we had Gears, we had what was another big Microsoft exclusive? Why am I blanking on this? Holy shit!
Well, how far do you want to go? Because it's like you could look at the early Forza games. You have strong third parties with Dead Rising 1 and Mass Effect 1. You have there's a handful of others that I really like. The two big ones for me that stick out as like directly like you named the big Microsoft ones, but it's like Mass Effect 1 and Dead Rising for me are like, just thinking about that's huge back in the day to have those two.
So whatever they're gonna do, I mean, they have to do it right. I don't think that they could really afford another huge disappointment in the same way that
I would be remiss if I didn't mention this and go back, because I did just spend like 30 minutes ranting about it. Dead or Alive was console exclusive. Dead or Alive 3 and on the Xbox, and Dead or Alive 4, like I said like 2 weeks ago, whenever I mentioned it when we were talking about Hayabusa Armor, to this day, if I boot up Dead or Alive 4 right now, and I do have it on my quick resume because I was playing it the other day, if you go to that one Vegas stage, it still says congratulations on the Xbox 360 launch.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, so no, listen. God. People always like to rag on. It's like, oh, Xbox never really had a library, and even I talked about it before, where I do think that they have the weaker of the three, obviously, but they were no slouch. They just really struggled at like growth and in nowadays and holding on to it. But
man. It's just a really, really, really weird time for Xbox.
Yep. Gaming in general, but
and I mean, Microsoft is like what are they, $3.5 trillion company at this point. There's no reason why they can't pump some of that into Xbox. There's zero reason.
I mean, we'll have more to say on this next time, obviously, but there are reasons behind it. And it really just comes down to the fact that, like, I mentioned this before. At some point, whenever Xbox makes a move, I think I mentioned this, is I'm pretty sure at a certain point the pressure from like the other parts of Microsoft, the more profitable parts, where they looked at all the stuff they have. It's like, okay, we have our PC software, we have Windows, we have our server software, we have the cloud. All of these are our money makers. What the fuck is Xbox doing? And that leads to weird pressure. That leads to what's going on with the Xbox right now.
So, anyway, I think this is probably a good spot to wrap it up. Yep. And then we can reconvene. So if you are listening, thank you very much for making it this far. And we will be back with more stuff and things that happened this week. So bye.
Bye-bye.